The internet did what it always does after a tragedy: it sprinted ahead of the facts. Within hours of Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death, hashtags morphed into theories, and theories masqueraded as truth. Today we're separating signals from static, what really happened in Costa Rica, what family and officials have confirmed, and why a wave of viral claims tried to rewrite the story before the ink was dry. By the end, you'll know exactly what's verified, what's speculation, and why the darker version spread so fast. Here's what's nailed down. On July 20th, 2025, while visiting Costa Rica's Caribbean coast, Malcolm-Jamal Warner entered the water near Playa Cockles and Limon. A rip current swept him out. Beachgoers brought him back to shore, the Costa Rican Red Cross worked to revive him, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. An autopsy determined the cause as asphyxiation by submersion, and authorities ruled the death accidental. These points come straight from police briefings and major outlets that cited official reports. The setting matters. Cockles is gorgeous and notorious. Local coverage has long warned about powerful rip currents there, some roundups even listed among the most dangerous beaches on that coast. That context doesn't soften the loss, but it explains how a routine swim can turn catastrophic in seconds. The paper trail is clean. Costa Rica's Judicial Investigation Department, OIJ, logged the incident, the Red Cross detailed its response, the forensic pathology report confirmed the medical cause and the accident ruling, and multiple mainstream outlets lined up on the same timeline, location, and findings. No missing hour, no unexplained gap, just a straightforward chain from incident to official confirmation. Some reports added small clarifications as rumors swirled, like when police addressed speculation about who was present and reiterated the core facts: a strong current, a rescue attempt, and an accidental drowning. The essentials never changed. That's the record. And even as condolences spread, the internet started writing a darker version, one that we'll test against these receipts next. Moments after a tragedy, there's a gap, tiny, raw, and uncomfortable. Facts are slow. Statements are short. People want answers now. That gap is where the internet gets to work. A caption becomes a clue. A screenshot becomes a document. A jump cut turns a guess into a headline. It feels like investigation, but it's really acceleration. Take the simplest version of events, layer on a twist, and upload it before anyone else can. The mechanics are predictable. First comes proof by vibe, somber music, red circles on a photo, a voice that whispers, "They don't want you to know this." Then screenshot laundering, an image shared so many times the original context is gone, so it looks official because it's everywhere. After that, soundbite drift, a tribute or a generic statement gets clipped mid-sentence and reposted until it sounds like a confession. None of this requires evidence. It just requires speed and a thumbnail that promises danger. Why does it work? Because mystery is sticky. A normal explanation, bad timing, bad current, bad luck, doesn't feel fair. A shadowy plot does. It gives the audience a villain to point at and a reason to keep watching. And the algorithm rewards that exact mix: tension, outrage, certainty. The darker the hint, the higher the watch time. The more confident the voice, the less anyone asks for receipts. There's also pattern addiction. When a name from the past has its own history, people stitch old headlines to new events and call it a pattern. It's comforting, in a strange way. Randomness is scary, a connected web feels smart. But connecting dots is not the same as proving them. If every line points to the same villain no matter the facts, that's not investigation, it's a template. Add in anonymity armor. A channel with no byline can say what a journalist won't. They frame caution as cover-up. They mock sourcing as mainstream spin. And if they're wrong, they delete the video, re-upload a new angle, and keep the momentum. Corrections don't trend. Contradictions don't hurt if the audience wants a sequel more than a source. The result is a feedback loop. Viewers get the rush of insider knowledge. Creators get the rush of views. Each new twist needs a bigger promise: leaked audio, a hidden memo, a friend of a friend who knows the real story. If those receipts never appear, the explanation shifts: they scrubbed it. Legal took it down. The absence of proof becomes the strongest proof of all. It's clever. It's also empty. Here's the quiet truth most people skip: real confirmations are boring. They live in statements with dates on them. They mention agencies by name. They include times, locations, and medical language. They're not fun to narrate. They don't make dramatic thumbnails. But they're the only pieces you can build on without the whole story collapsing later. So how do you protect yourself without becoming cynical? 3 quick habits. 1. Ask for the document, not a crop, not a caption, the source. 2. Timestamp the claim. Did it come before or after the official report? 3. Separate tribute from accusation. If someone is grieving on record, that's not the same as pointing a finger off record. If a creator can't clear those bars, you're not looking at an investigation. You're watching a pitch. And this is where our path splits from the viral one. We're not here to chase the most shocking version, we're here to test it. That means pulling the loudest claims back to earth and asking, calmly, what was actually said? Where? By whom? And can we show it? Because the next name in this story is the one the internet kept circling in bold letters. It fueled thumbnails, titles, and 1,000 confident narrations. Let's pin it to the facts and see what survives. Up next, what Ice Cube actually said, and what he didn't. If you believe the thumbnails, Ice Cube walked into a studio, slammed down receipts, and named names. That's the story the viral machine sold. But when you slow down and listen to full clips, not chopped sound bites, not stitched reels, the tone is completely different. What you hear is grief, respect, perspective from someone who's been around long enough to know how fast a rumor can eat a legacy. What you don't hear is a clear, on-record accusation backed by evidence and dates. That missing piece matters. Here's how the switcheroo works. A creator grabs a few sincere lines about loss, about the industry being cold, about people needing to tell the truth, and drags those lines under a headline about cover-ups. Then they change the order. They cut a sentence in half. They drop the question that came right before it and the context that came right after. Suddenly a reflection becomes a revelation. A warning about vultures becomes a wink about villains. And without the full exchange, no one notices the gears grinding. There's also the remix problem. One video adds ominous music and a red arrow. The next overlays a leaked doc that no one can trace. A third throws in a voiceover saying, he confirmed it. Did he? Or did the narrator feel like he did because it fit the script they already wrote? It's amazing how quickly he's hurting turns into he hinted. And he hinted turns into he exposed. That's not journalism. That's escalation. If you want a simple test for anything pinned to Cube's name, use 3 questions: source, sentence, setting. Source: where did the clip appear first, with a name and date, or did it materialize as a re-upload? Sentence: are you hearing a complete thought, or a mid-breath fragment that trails off before the point lands? Setting: was he speaking at a tribute, on a long-form interview, or in an off-the-cuff backstage moment? Context changes meaning. Strip the setting and you can make almost anyone sound conspiratorial. Another tell: confidence that grows as proof shrinks. The spiciest uploads talk like court transcripts, then point to nothing you can actually verify. They'll promise recorded calls you never hear. They'll flash documents you never see. They'll cite industry insiders with no names, no timestamps, and no paper trail. If the claim is massive, the evidence should be bigger than a grainy screenshot. When it isn't, that's your cue to step back. There's a human piece here, too. Artists who've endured decades in the business have earned the right to speak sharply about how it treats people. That doesn't turn every hard truth into a criminal allegation. Cube can talk about the system being ruthless without secretly accusing a specific person of plotting anything. He can honor a man's impact and still caution fans not to let clout chasers turn grief into a circus. Those ideas can coexist. In fact, they usually do. So what did he actually give the public? The part that's consistent across full-length conversations is simple: sorrow for the loss, respect for the work, and broad commentary about an industry that loves talent but moves on fast. That's not a coded message. That's plain language. And if someone claims there's a hidden confession buried in there, ask them to play the long version, uncut. If they can't, or won't, you've already learned what you need to know. This matters for more than one reason. First, it honors the person at the center of all this by keeping the story grounded in what people truly said, not what strangers wish they said. Second, it keeps us compliant with platform rules that punish unverified accusations. And third, it protects you, the viewer, from getting played by engagement bait dressed up as investigative work. Which brings us to the other name the internet couldn't stop dragging into the conversation. If Cube's comments were reshaped by edits, this next person's grieving words were treated like breadcrumbs to a plot. Let's set aside the thumbnails and look at the public record. Up next, Cosby's on-record statements, and what they do and don't prove. Cosby's name rushed into the conversation for an obvious reason. He and Malcolm-Jamal shared one of TV's most watched father-son dynamics. That history makes an easy bridge for people who want a bigger, darker story. But history isn't evidence. What's on record is simple. In the days after the news, Cosby spoke publicly to mourn, recalling Malcolm-Jamal's work ethic, their cast's bond, and the shock of losing him. In one interview, he described embracing co-star Felicia Rashad over the phone as they grieved together. That's a man processing a loss, not leveling accusations or hinting at secret plots. Set that against the official cause and manner of death. Authorities in Costa Rica said Warner was caught in a rip current near Cockles Beach. Bystanders and the Red Cross tried to revive him. The medical cause was asphyxia from submersion. The case was ruled accidental. None of the police statements or mainstream reports tie Cosby, or anyone else, to wrongdoing. If you see a video implying otherwise, ask for the document it's based on. You'll notice there isn't one. So how did grief morph into clues? It's guilt by association, supercharged by algorithms. People take old headlines about Cosby, staple them to a new tragedy, and call it a pattern. Then a clipped sentence from a condolence interview gets framed as a signal. Remove the question that came before it, the sentence that came after it, and you can make any public figure sound like they're winking at a conspiracy. Context isn't a luxury here, it's the whole meaning. Here's the checklist that protects you from that trap. Is there a named source and a full, uncut clip? If not, it's interpretation, not evidence. Does the claim align with the official findings? If it contradicts police and medical statements, it needs extraordinary proof, not dramatic music. Are quotes complete and dated? Half sentences are how rumors are manufactured. Bottom line, Cosby's on-record words are condolences, not confirmations of anything nefarious, and they sit alongside a clear investigative timeline that points to an accident. That isn't the twistiest version, but it's the truthful one, and honoring Malcolm-Jamal means staying with what can be shown, not what can be implied. Next, we leave speculation behind and go to the people whose voices matter most in moments like this: his family, what they said, what they're building in his name, and why their words should anchor the story. When the noise was at its loudest, the only words that cut through belonged to his family. They didn't post theories. They didn't flirt with mystery. They offered something rarer online, a calm account and a clear request. His mother, Pamela Warner, thanked everyone who reached out, then shared the one detail that mattered most to people who loved him from afar: he did not suffer. No dramatics. No coded hints. Just a mother drawing a line between compassion and chaos, and asking the public to meet her on the side of compassion. In the days that followed, the family's updates kept pointing in the same direction: honor the life, not the rumor. Instead of feeding the algorithm with what-ifs, they focused on how to carry his work forward, not as a headline, but as a commitment. That's where the living legacy idea comes in. It reframes the conversation from spectacle to service. Take the energy you would have spent chasing shadows and invest it in the things he actually stood for: craft, mentorship, community, and the kind of steady excellence that doesn't need a microphone to be real. There's a reason the family's account should anchor this story. They're the only ones living with the outcome every hour, without a pause button. They've seen the official paperwork. They've spoken to the people who were there. They're not trying to sell you a plot twist. They're trying to get through the week with their dignity intact. When they say the outcome was an accident, when they underline that he didn't suffer, that's not spin, it's a stake in the ground. You can either respect it, or you can turn grief into content. There isn't a middle lane. And there's a bigger lesson in the way they handled it. The family didn't demand silence. They asked for accuracy. They didn't argue with every wild claim. They centered what's true and let the rest talk itself out. That restraint is powerful. In an attention economy that rewards the loudest voice, choosing to be measured is a form of strength. It also gives the rest of us a blueprint. When a story breaks, start with the names on the record, then move outward, not the other way around. So if you're deciding who to believe, stack the sources. On one side, a family statement, officials with dates and reports, and a community of friends sharing memories with names attached. On the other, anonymous channels promising evidence they never show. Which pile would you bet your credibility on? Exactly. From here, we'll back the family's account with the trail that doesn't trend but always matters: documents, timelines, and confirmations. Because honoring someone's legacy isn't just about saying the right things, it's about proving them. Up next, the paperwork that stitched this story together, and why it leaves so little room for the internet's favorite detours. Here's the part rumors can't outrun: the record with dates, agencies, and medical language. On July 20th, 2025, Costa Rica's investigators and first responders documented a drowning in Limon province after a rip current at or near Playa Cockles pulled Malcolm-Jamal Warner under. Bystanders got him to shore. The Costa Rican Red Cross tried to revive him, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. The cause of death listed by authorities is asphyxia by submersion, and the manner is accidental. Those aren't guesses, they're the phrases repeated in police briefings and mainstream reports in the 24 to 48 hours after the incident. Within the next day, outlets updated with autopsy completion and the formal confirmation that the death was accidental, not under investigation, not undetermined, accidental. People's reporting cites the police and the Costa Rican medical determination directly, locking in both the mechanism, drowning, and the manner, accident. Early coverage did what early coverage always does: it stumbled over place names. Some stories said Cockles, a few mentioned Playa Grande, others referenced Puerto Viejo. All of those are in the same Caribbean stretch of Limon where rip currents are common. As the dust settled, authorities and major outlets consistently placed the event in the Cockles area and kept the critical facts the same: strong current, rescue attempt, death at the scene, accidental ruling. Location labels shifted, the essentials did not. Police also cleaned up viral misunderstandings. One rumor insisted his young daughter was in immediate danger in the water. Officials clarified, she'd been playing near the shore earlier, she was not in the current during the fatal moment. That correction came straight from Costa Rica's Judicial Investigation Agency, OIJ, and was carried by multiple outlets. It's a perfect example of how speculation gets ahead of statements, and then gets walked back by the people actually doing the work. Several reports add details that match the realities of rip current rescues. Bystanders and a doctor on the beach assisted. There were no lifeguards on duty. Conditions were rough. Again, none of that changes the core: the medical cause is drowning, and the manner is an accident. Entertainment Weekly summarized it in the most clinical way possible: asphyxia by submersion, the phrasing you see on forms, not thumbnails. If you want one more layer of confirmation, ABC News' Straightwire update is the litmus test. It names the agency, the location, the cause, and the date without drama. When a story matches across ABC, People, and later obituaries, you're not looking at a narrative, you're looking at consensus. This is why the paper trail matters for more than trivia. It gives you a map: who said what, when, and with what authority. If a claim can't survive that map, if it can't name the agency, can't show the document, can't align with the autopsy language, it's not a hidden truth. Maybe it's profitable. Up next, we zoom out from paperwork to people, why audiences keep choosing the darkest explanation, and how platforms reward that choice even when the facts are settled. When something unimaginable happens, our brains hate loose ends. We reach for patterns, motives, a mastermind. Randomness feels like an insult. A shadowy plan feels like closure. That instinct has a name: proportionality bias, and it tricks us into believing big events must have big causes. An accident feels too small for a life this important, so the mind upgrades it to a plot. Then comes apophenia, seeing connections that aren't there. A past headline, a clipped sentence, a grainy screenshot, suddenly they line up like a constellation. The picture looks obvious once you draw the lines. But you drew them, not the facts. Grief adds fuel. It wants a villain. Anger is easier than helplessness. If someone is to blame, then chaos has rules. That promise is comforting, and creators know it. So they package grief as a mystery you can solve from your couch, with a payoff if you just keep watching. Now layer on par's social loyalty. Fans feel close to the person they grew up with. Anyone challenging the rumor becomes the media, the suits, the cover-up. Distrust of institutions meets devotion to a memory, and skepticism gets framed as disrespect. It's not. Skepticism is the only way to keep a legacy clean. The platforms amplify all of this. The algorithm doesn't ask what's true, it asks what holds you. Suspense holds. Outrage holds. Certainty holds. A calm, accurate update loses to a dramatic one every time. That's not a conspiracy, it's an incentive structure. If a creator can keep you for one more minute with a darker hint, they just earned it. Creators also exploit ambiguity economics. Vague claims are impossible to debunk because there's nothing specific to check. A source says can't be verified, so it can't be disproved. If pushback arrives, the story shifts, they deleted the proof. Absence of evidence becomes the final, flawless evidence. Another trick is quote drift. A tribute becomes a nudge. A nudge becomes an allegation. By the 10th upload, the tone of a eulogy reads like the tone of an exposé. No one shows the full clip, they show the feeling the clip can be edited to create. That feeling is persuasive because it confirms what the viewer already suspects. There's also novelty hunger. The first accurate report is boring by design. The fifth rumor is fresh. Freshness feels like new information, so it gets shared, even if it's just an old claim with new music. Repetition then creates an illusion of truth. If you've seen it everywhere, it must be real. That's a memory glitch, not a revelation. So how do you keep your balance without turning cold? Use 3 small habits. Ask for the receipt, not a crop, the source with names and dates. Check chronology. Did the claim appear after the official report? If yes, it's likely reacting, not revealing. Inspect the stakes. If the accusation is huge, the evidence should be larger than a thumbnail. There's a final reason the dark version thrives. It flatters the audience. It says you're in the inner circle, the one who gets it. But the real inner circle, family, first responders, investigators, puts their names on paper. They file reports. They don't post riddles. Choosing the simple, documented answer isn't naive. It's disciplined. It keeps the focus on the person, not the plot. And that's the point of this video, to honor a life by keeping the story grounded in what we can prove. Hold that thought, because the next part is the antidote to all the noise. We're stepping away from rumor economics and back to the man himself, the work he built, the values he named, and the legacy his family is choosing to carry forward. Strip away the noise and you're left with the part that actually lasts, the work. Decades of it. He wasn't just the face you remember from a living room you grew up in. He kept showing up, on sets, in writers' rooms, on stages, treating the craft like a long game instead of a flash of fame. That's rare. Even rarer is how quietly he did it. What people inside the industry talk about isn't scandal, it's discipline. He read everything, asked hard questions, and protected his characters from shortcuts. If a line didn't ring true, he'd try 3 ways to fix it before anyone called lunch. That's not glamorous, but it's the part audiences feel without realizing it, the difference between a performance that's loud and one that's lived in. He also did something most child stars never figure out. He reinvented without erasing. He honored the early years, then pushed past them, heavier roles, more layered men, less laughter track safety. He learned where to stand behind the camera, how to shape a scene, when to say no. Reinvention, done right, is quiet. You only notice it when you look back and realize the work kept getting better. Off camera, he kept a small circle and a big heart. Younger actors tell the same story. He'd pull you aside, not to lecture, but to listen. He'd talk contracts, boundaries, and sleep. He'd remind people that the job is a privilege and a grind, and that both truths can live on the same day. Mentorship rarely trends, but it changes lives long after hashtags stop. And then there's the voice, not the famous one, the one he used in small venues and late-night sets. The spoken word pieces. The poems that hit like a quiet punch. He wrote about family, about pressure, about staying human in a machine that pays you to become a product. Those pieces aged well because they weren't trying to be viral. They were trying to be honest. His family's response fits that same pattern, measured, grounded, focused on what he stood for. The living legacy they're building doesn't chase clout, it channels it. Support for young artists. Spaces where craft comes before clicks. Reminders that consistency is a superpower. If you want to honor him, that's where to start, not with theories, but with investment in the next pair of hands holding the work. There's another reason to center the legacy. It gives grief a job. Rumors give grief a rush that fades fast. Legacy gives grief direction. Every time you revisit a performance, recommend a project, Quote a line that helped you through a hard day. You're voting for the version of him that was real and earned, not the version strangers tried to sell. So yes, acknowledge the loss. But don't let the last headline become the whole story. The body of work is the story. The way he carried himself is the story. The people he lifted when no one was watching, that's the story. And it's bigger than any thumbnail could hold. Hold on to that as we close. Because if you can keep the person louder than the plot, the truth has a chance to outlive the rumor. Up next, a straight-to-the-point conclusion that ties the facts, the family, and the legacy together, and leaves you with the only question that matters going forward. When you strip this story down to what can stand on its own, it isn't complicated. The record says an accident. The family says he didn't suffer. The people who knew him remember the work in the man, not a plot. Everything louder than that is an echo chasing attention. That doesn't mean questions are bad. It means the right questions point you toward names, dates, and documents, not vibes in a thumbnail. If a claim can't survive those basics, it doesn't deserve your belief, let alone your share. There's a cost when we let the darkest version win. It steals space from the truth, from the family trying to grieve, and from the legacy he actually built. It turns a life into a puzzle and asks strangers to profit from putting the pieces in the wrong order. So here's the challenge going forward. The next time a timeline breaks your heart, pause. Ask who's speaking on the record. Ask what the paperwork says. Ask whether a clip is complete or cut to fit a narrative. If the answers are thin, let the rumor starve. And then pick up the part that matters. Revisit the work. Share the performances that moved you. Support the next artist who needs a hand. That's how you keep someone's name alive without borrowing it for drama. In the end, we don't honor people by making their story scarier. We honor them by telling it clean, by standing with the facts even when they're simple, and by choosing legacy over lore. That choice is ours, every time. If this helps you see the difference between noise and truth, carry it with you. The internet will always offer a twist. You don't have to take it.